High up above the Mediterranean Sea, newborn monkeys prepared to patrol the Rock of Gibraltar. Across the Atlantic, flamboyant flamingos forage to feed their flock. And a single mother manatee trains her young in the ways of the wild. Bound together by a common goal, fighting for their future. For these animals, family life is the key to survival. Inside the different realms of the wild kingdom, members of a single species assemble in droves. And one flock, herd, or troop reigns supreme. These are the world's great animal empires. At the southern tip of Europe, the Rock of Gibraltar stands guard at the gateway between the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea. This is one of the pillars of Hercules, the end of the known world in Greek mythology. The British flag now flies above this strategically valuable post. And modern myth says it will stay here, as long as Gibraltar's wild monkeys remain rulers of the rock. Currently, there are just over 200 Barbary macaques living amongst the 30,000 residents of the small, densely populated city of Gibraltar. Hundreds of tourists also flock to the rock every day. The hustle and bustle of the city is a part of life for the macaques. But make no mistake, these are wild monkeys. In fact, they are the only non-human primates that live wild in Europe. The empire of the Barbary macaques is scattered across northern Africa, once known as the Barbary Coast, and here in Gibraltar. In 2009, the species was declared endangered. Deforestation has decimated the Atlas Mountains of Algeria and Morocco, which was once home to 3/4 of the Barbary macaque population. So while Gibraltar's stronghold is thriving, it may also be the last hope for the Barbary macaques. If this animal empire is to rise again, it must have a well-established succession plan. Macaques form social groups of 10 to 100 individuals called troops. While hierarchy among females is based on birthright, male members of the troop must fight for their rank. Two competing males joust with each other to establish dominance. The fight draws a crowd. Potential allies pick sides, hoping to be part of the winning coalition. As is often the case, the elder emerges the winner. It's not uncommon for these sparring matches to leave lasting scars. But it's well worth it. To the victor goes the spoils. Evidence suggests it's the macaque female who chooses her mate. And chances are she'll pick the winning male. But Barbary macaques are a promiscuous bunch. After partnering with a dominant male, females will mate with others in the troop. This increases the odds of conception. It also means there's no way to know whom the father is. In a busy city like Gibraltar, this could pose a problem. A baby monkey is vulnerable. Danger lurks around every corner. Someone will have to help protect the heir to the empire. To the west, across the Atlantic, the Caribbean Sea rests between the coasts of two continents. This is the breeding ground of the American flamingo, also known as the Caribbean flamingo. These are the only flamingos found in North America. At least, the only real flamingos. It was artist Don Featherstone in 1957 who created the now infamous pink plastic lawn ornaments. Fake foul folk art is an icon of American kitsch that is celebrated to this day and a popular prank on 40th birthdays. From cave drawings to Alice's croquet mallets, this colorful character has been making an appearance in artwork and stories for centuries. In the natural world, the American flamingo is currently thriving. But that may not last long. Other flamingo species in the Western Hemisphere, like the Chilean and Andean flamingos, are in decline. Current trend suggests the American flamingo may face the same fate. If they are to avoid the fall of their empire, flamingo families must ensure their bloodlines. And that means relying on a heavily coordinated mating ritual. The American flamingo lives throughout the Caribbean, and from South Florida in the north to Venezuela in the south. Each year, thousands travel from the mainland of Venezuela to the island of Bonaire to breed. And Pekelmere, on the southern tip of the island, is the largest natural flamingo sanctuary in the Western Hemisphere. It's an ideal habitat for these aquatic birds. Pekel is Dutch for saltwater, and meer means lake. The shallow water is home to algae, insects, and the meal of choice for flamingos, shellfish. This is the source of their signature look. These crustaceans contain large amounts of beta-carotene, just like carrots. And it's beta-carotene that makes flamingos pink. These birds seem proud of their pink plumage. Flamingos spend about a quarter of their time preening, nearly twice as much as other waterfowl. When birds preen, they gather oil from a gland at the base of their tail. They then redistribute the oil to the rest of their bodies. It keeps the bird's feathers in tip-top shape. Here on Bonaire's breeding grounds, looking good is especially important. In addition to keeping them warm and dry, well-preened plumage helps attract a partner. Like many other species, these birds compete for a mate. But this isn't a show of strength. It's more like a dance competition. All at once, groups of tens or even hundreds within the colony will begin an elaborate series of movements, all with the goal of attracting a mate. And the flamboyant flamingos have some fancy dance moves. They start with a head flag, stretching their necks and heads high, bill pointing up and moving their heads from side to side. They then lift their wing in a salute to show off their plumage. And finally, the twist preen. Each bird twists its head back and quickly preens. But unlike the macaques of Gibraltar, a flamingo couple will usually mate for life. All the more reason for this single adult female to be picky in choosing her partner. Finally, the dance ends, and Cupid's arrow finds its mark. A female calls out to her chosen mate, then starts walking away from the group, making herself available. She stops, lowers her head, and spreads her wings. It's an invitation for the male to mount. It's a complex operation, made no easier by the fact that it all takes place in the water. For this couple, it's just the first of many challenging steps in starting a flamingo family. They must now build a nest big and strong enough to resist flooding and changes in temperature. The bond between these partners may be unbreakable, but the fragile egg they hope to produce is not. "2,000 kilometers northeast from Bonaire, the coast of Florida is a much sought-after winter escape. And not just for humans. When the temperature drops in December, manatees begin to move from the cold open ocean to the warmer inland waters along the coast. Manatees are large marine mammals that belong to the order Sirenia. Sirenia is from the Latin siren, or mermaid. The myth of a part woman, part fish has existed as long as there have been seafarers. Christopher Columbus himself wrote of the female forms that rose high out of the sea. Historians believe this is the first written record of a manatee sighting in these waters. Similar to flamingos, West Indian manatees range from the southeastern United States to the northern coast of South America. Manatees are slow-moving and have a low metabolic rate. This leaves them vulnerable in the cold. Exposure to water temperatures below 20 degrees Celsius can lead to a condition called cold stress syndrome and even death. So, like the snowbirds that make the annual migration south for the winter, these manatees head for warmer climes. One popular destination is Sanibel Island, off the coast of Fort Myers, Florida. Its warm water springs, lagoons, and bayous offer ideal habitats to find a mate. But that habitat is shrinking. And so too is the manatee population. It's estimated that there are fewer than 6,500 manatees in Florida. Few enough to be considered endangered. Because females give birth only once every 2 years, every chance to breed is crucial to sustaining their empire. In one of Sanibel Island's warm water springs, a female lays in wait. She has the full attention of multiple male suitors. A dozen bulls follow her, forming a mating herd. Within the herd, these males compete to become the first to mate. Like the macaques, more than one will have a chance at fathering her calf. It's a matter of playing the odds. For this female to have the best possible chance at conception, she will mate with multiple members of the herd. Three weeks later, the males disperse. Their part in the breeding process is complete, and it's been a success. This female is now pregnant. Her pregnancy will last a whole year. During this time, the mother manatee and her unborn calf are vulnerable. When these big mammals break the surface to breathe, they're an unwitting target for the hull or prop of a boat. Most of Florida's manatees bear distinctive scars to prove it. Locals say that not a single manatee has gone unscathed. This potential new manatee mother must be cautious and careful if she's to survive long enough to deliver the newborn now growing inside her. High up on the Rock of Gibraltar, 6 months have passed, and a new member has joined the troop. Like other primates, the baby macaque sticks close to its mom at first, feeding on her milk. Though sometimes mistaken as apes, macaques are in fact monkeys. The difference is in the tail. Most monkeys have them. Apes don't. Though it doesn't look like it, macaques do have a tail. It's just really small. A fully grown macaque's tail is only between 4 and 20 millimeters long. And there is another extraordinary quality that makes the Barbary macaques unusual. Males play an active role in parenting. It's uncommon among primates, especially when paternity is uncertain. Since it's near impossible to know whom the father is, it would be easy enough for any mating male to be a deadbeat dad. Instead, they all pitch in. Perhaps because of this uncertainty, all male Barbary macaques in a troop are integral to raising all the infants. It's a form of what scientists call alloparenting, when individuals other than the biological parents act in a parental role. For the Barbary macaques, it really does take a village to raise a family. Just months ago, these male macaques waged war for the affection of a female. But when it comes to childcare, they must put aside their differences and help train and protect the troop's new recruits. It's a challenging responsibility. After a few months, the young macaque is eager to roam the slope and explore the empire it will one day inherit. Now weaned from its mother, it must find food on its own. But Gibraltar is a busy post. The roads of the rock are dangerous, especially for a hungry and curious little monkey. On the Caribbean island of Bonaire, when it comes to nesting, birds of a feather truly flock together. The expecting flamingo parents join other couples, all nesting together at the same time once a year. The success of this animal empire is based on the colony's chicks all hatching in sync. This makes it easier to provide for the newborns, a responsibility that, like the Barbary macaques, is shared by all the adults of the flock. To get ready for laying and hatching, both the male and female help build the nest out of mounds of mud, stone, straw, and feathers. Construction takes about 6 weeks. The flamingos use their bills to make the mound by bringing the mud and other materials towards their feet. If they build it right, it will stand about 30 to 45 centimeters tall and will be shaped like a volcano. On top, they make a shallow well for the egg. The mound helps keep the egg at a constant temperature. It also keeps it out of ground-level flooding. The nest has to be built well enough to hold the egg and mom and dad for at least a month. Once the nest is complete, Mother Flamingo lays her egg. Flamingos usually lay one large egg. It's shaped the same as a chicken egg, but weighs 2 to 3 times as much. Both parents help with incubation while they wait. And after just under a month, the egg hatches. Both mother and father are there when the chick emerges from its shell. They stand over and gently preen and nibble the newborn. At first, the chick can only move by pushing its wings and lifting its head. As the hours and days pass, it grows stronger and begins to walk. Its red bill and plump, swollen legs turn black after a week or so. After 10 days, the new chick is ready to join a creche. It's a kind of flamingo daycare where chicks are watched by a group of adults. There's still a long way to go before he is ready to leave the nest for good. He must learn to feed on his own. And with human civilization expanding nearby, Bonaire's once bountiful banquet is depleting. There's simply not enough grub to go around. With thousands of mouths to feed, the newest members of this empire will need to learn to fight for food, or flee if they are going to survive. The inland waters of Florida's Sanibel Island are calm and quiet. It's been a year since the manatee mating herd dispersed. The pregnant female has managed to stay safe and secure in the warm, shallow waters of the mangroves. And she's now the proud mother of a new baby calf. Like most manatee births, her newborn is a single calf, just over 1 meter long and weighing between 25 and 30 kilograms. Within minutes of birth, the precocious newborn manatee calf is able to swim. Like all mammals, manatees need air to breathe. They hold their breath underwater while closing the flaps on their nostrils. They can stay submerged for as long as 20 minutes, but they'll usually go to the surface every 5 minutes to breathe. And while the newborn can swim to the surface on his own, he needs a bit of encouragement. An attentive mother is right alongside to make sure her baby does as nature intended. The calf begins to feed within a few hours after birth, nursing from teats located behind his mother's flippers. During nursing, the mother and calf bond is strong. West Indian manatees can grow as large as 4 meters long and weigh 500 kilograms, about as much as a grand piano. Manatees are sometimes called sea cows, and given their size and shape, it's easy to see why. Their closest relative is, in fact, a 4-legged land animal. But it's not the cow. It's the elephant. There's an unusual twist in this family tree. It's thought that manatees evolved from a land mammal and moved to the sea. The opposite of the usual evolution story that tells of animals leaving the water for land. Now, millions of years later, manatees have adapted to life in the sea. Unlike macaques and flamingos, by the time this newborn manatee takes his first breath, his father will be long gone. Mom will be the sole parent for the crucial first years of this vulnerable infant's life. The young manatee stays close to his mother's side at all times. While adults typically swim in single file, the calf will always travel parallel to his mother. Sticking close means mother and calf can stay in constant communication. Manatees are relatively quiet creatures, but they can emit a wide range of sounds. Mother and calf are especially talkative. The calf cries out when it's hungry or gets separated. This dependency will continue for as long as 2 years. During this time, Mother Manatee will serve as teacher. The young manatee is an attentive student, and he must be. There's lots to learn about migration routes, rest areas, and especially how to find food. These mammals are herbivores and eat a variety of plants. Mother manatee will eat 15% of her body weight every day. The newborn must learn to find enough food on his own if he's to make it past his second birthday. And foraging for food pushes the young manatee further into Florida's busy waterways and into the path of potential danger. Putting food on the table is a fundamental part of any family life. Once infants have been weaned, they have to learn how to forage on their own. A young Barbary macaque takes its lead from the troop's senior supervisors, searching the slopes of the Rock of Gibraltar for a meal. The diet of most macaques consists of a mixture of plants and insects like snails, worms, and spiders. The Gibraltar monkeys have an advantage over their African and Asian kin. They are a popular tourist attraction. And despite rules against feeding, they get, and often take, their fair share of handouts. Hand feeding often encourages good monkeys to behave badly. Local officials have taken measures to control the feeding. They offer grains of barley and chopped up vegetables to keep the monkeys happy and occupied. It's a healthier alternative to human leftovers that can cause tooth decay and disease. But it's a less than ideal solution to a serious problem. Any helping hand from humans puts the monkeys at risk. On the Rock of Gibraltar, natural predators like dogs and birds are scarce. Cars and trucks, however, are not. A sentinel watches from above as other members of the troop scavenge for food. Suddenly, he appears agitated, scratching and moving sporadically. He senses danger and calls out to the rest of the troop. It's a very specific call. Pitch and loudness vary based on the caller and whom he's calling. Barbary macaques can tell the difference between calls by members of their own troop from those in other groups. They even have different calls for different threats. It's an essential skill for the society to survive. Thanks to the warning signal, the foraging party is able to move out of harm's way. As the sun sets over the Mediterranean, the Barbary macaque seeks shelter in the trees along the slopes of the Rock of Gibraltar. The juvenile monkeys are now safe and secure in the company of the troop. To relieve the stress of a dramatic day, they relax by grooming. Though it sometimes results in a snack, the main function of grooming seems to be to soothe the nerves. Scientists believe that it's the groomer, not the groomed, that benefits the most. And as they have for the last few months, male adults play a leading role in ensuring the juveniles have a chance to unwind. In just a few more years, when they reach the age of 4 or 5, the juveniles will be ready to start their own families. And they too will have to help their young navigate the streets of Gibraltar. For the last 6 centuries, macaques and humans have managed to live together in these tight quarters. Both must follow the rules of the rock if they're to continue to coexist for the centuries to come. It's not just mammals like monkeys and manatees that provide milk to their newborns. When young flamingos are born, both mother and father produce a liquid food in a pouch in their throat called a crop. They regurgitate this flamingo milk to the young. It's also the color red. While the baby is gray or white at birth, the pigment from the flamingo milk will turn it pink after a year or so. Then he's on his own. Once the young flamingo's beak is developed, he must learn how to use it. A flamingo's beak is custom built for the job of filtering food. The top looks like an inverted spoon. Inside are hundreds of horny plates similar to certain baleen whales like humpbacks. These work like a filter or sieve. In shallow water, they use their long legs like stir sticks, churning the sediment on the bottom. The hungry flamingo dips its head upside down, taking a mouthful of water laden with insects, tiny crustaceans, and algae. It then pumps its muscular tongue like a piston to drive water through the filter. Algae and shellfish now take the place of the red milk, providing the beta-carotene that keeps the flamingo's feathers pink. As the chicks grow, so too will their appetites. Flamingos spend about a third of their time feeding. Most eat during the night, but breeding flamingos will also eat during the day. Producing milk for their chick leaves both parents looking rather pale. They've lost much of their pretty pink plumage and must eat extra helpings of shellfish to return to their former glory. with growing chicks and hungry parents, the demand on food sources here in Bonaire increases. And there's not enough to feed the thousands of beaks. Both climate change and encroaching development are putting a strain on the wetlands on which flamingos depend for food. And when food is scarce, hungry birds get agitated. Though they may have a reputation as peaceful and gentle creatures, when it comes to food, these birds aren't afraid to fight. It starts with a show of force. They expand their plumage and open their wings, each competitor trying to show he or she is the biggest and strongest. If an actual fight breaks out, it's called bill fencing. A parry and thrust of necks and bashing together of beaks. Finally, one bird gets tired and walks away. But diminishing resources don't diminish their appetites. Everyone has to eat. As a result, every day, a few hundred leave the island for the coastal waters of nearby Venezuela in search of more food. Flamingos may not look like they were built to fly. Their legs are longer than their bodies, and their necks are so long they need 19 bones for support. But they are, in fact, expert and frequent flyers. They need a running takeoff to get their long, lean bodies in the air and must continuously flap their wings. Once they take to the skies, adult flamingos can fly up to 65 kilometers per hour. They need the speed. Theirs is a daily round-trip commute, 80 kilometers from Bonaire to the mainland and back again. By the time the youngsters reach 2.5 months old, they too were able to make the flight. But they're traveling on a different itinerary. They will stay on the mainland for 4 to 5 years until they reach sexual maturity. Only then will they return to the breeding grounds of Bonaire, with the hopes that it will still have enough resources for them to continue the life cycle of their empire. Manatees spend approximately half of their day sleeping underwater. They spend the remainder of their time mostly eating. A fully grown manatee can consume over 45 kilograms of plants. That means mom is munching on a meal for up to 7 hours every day. Now she must teach her calf how to use his flippers to walk along the bottom, to dig for plants and roots on the seafloor. When she finds a plant, she uses her flippers to scoop the vegetation toward her lips. A manatee's lips are split in half. Left and right sides can move independently and have 7 muscles. They work much like the trunk of their distant relative, the elephant. They're called prehensile lips. They work back and forth in a way that helps them graze on seagrass and large leafy plants. The manatee does not have front teeth. Behind the lips, on the roof of the mouth, are dense, rigid pads like molars, used to tear through and grind plants. On Sanibel Island, it may appear as though the manatees live a tropical life of leisure, relaxing and feasting in the warm, shallow water. But this image is deceiving. Boat strikes kill an average of nearly 100 animals every year. Water pollution and rising sea temperatures also cause red tide, large concentrations of toxic algae that kill hundreds of manatees a year. It takes females 5 years and males 8 before they reach sexual maturity. Manatees that don't make it that long don't have a chance to breed. Conservation efforts are helping to protect these docile, mythical creatures. But for now, Mother Manatee must trust that her newborn is well equipped to survive in the wild and will live long enough to start a family of his own. At the mouth of the Mississippi River, the last survivors of a rare breed of deer fight for a future. On Britain's rivers, the Queen of England's very own flock of birds gets the royal treatment. And tunneling tortoises dig deep as they compete for real estate in southern Florida. Throughout history, thousands of species have faced extinction. Some have been to the brink and back. For others, the road to recovery is just beginning. Inside the different realms of the animal kingdom, members of a single species assemble in droves. One flock, herd, or troop reigns supreme. These are the world's great animal empires. It's the start of another long, hot summer in the heart of the southern United States. This is the great Mississippi River Delta, the southernmost point of the line that once defined the American western frontier. Vast marshes and swamps formed by the delta support a rich variety of wildlife. Including one of the world's rarest species, known as Père David's deer. These ruminant mammals live in large herds and spend their time grazing on the grasses and aquatic plants of the delta's wetlands. This particular species is known partly for its mix and match characteristics. Its head is long and slender, like a horse. It has large and spreading hooves like an ox or cow, allowing it to walk on the soft ground. Its tail and body are similar to a donkey's. And of course, it has antlers, though they're different than most deer. They look like they're on backwards. But it's not just the antlers that make this species different. Currently, David's deer live only in captivity. The deer in this herd are refugees, brought here to Louisiana to be one of the cornerstones in the rebuilding of an animal empire on the edge of extinction. Evidence suggests that the species once ranged throughout central and eastern China. According to Chinese myth, more than 3,000 years ago, a horse, a donkey, an ox, and a deer vowed to seek justice against the tyrannical King Zhou. They transformed themselves into one animal that combined their strengths. The Chinese called it the Milu, or Zhepu Zhang, which means not one of the four. Famed Chinese folk hero Jiang Ziya then rode this strange new creature into battle and won victory over the ruthless king. Having fulfilled its vow, the Milu settled in the lower Yangtze River and became a symbol of good fortune. In the centuries that followed, Chinese emperors believed that eating this extraordinary animal would bring them everlasting life. By the late 19th century, hunting had taken its toll. The Milu had been slaughtered to near extinction. The only remaining herd lived in China's royal garden, property of the emperor. In 1866, a French naturalist, Father Armand David, heard about the rare and mysterious deer. He had to see them for himself. He convinced the emperor to send a few deer back to Europe, where scientists named the species Père, meaning Father David's deer. The emperor also agreed to send a few living deer to be showcased in European zoos. Though numbers were low, the species seemed destined to survive in these captive settings. Then, tragedy struck. In 1895, a flood destroyed China's imperial garden walls. Most of the deer escaped. Starving peasants killed and ate the fleeing Milu. Just 5 years later, during the Boxer Rebellion, soldiers occupied the palace and killed the few deer that remained. The empire of the Milu had fallen. Or had it? There were still the few remaining deer that had been sent to Europe. For Père David's deer to survive, the species depended on just 6 individuals whose genes would provide the building blocks for a new empire far from their native land. Like the greatest of the Chinese dynasties, the British Empire once ruled far beyond the nation's borders. At the height of its power, it held sway over a quarter of the globe and 1/5 of the world's population. Expansive palaces, great stately manors, and lush gardens exist today as a symbol of British royalty. Part of that symbolism is an animal with an empire of its own: the mute swan. Recent data suggests 500,000 mute swans live throughout their native range from Western Europe through to Western Asia. There are at least 22,000 in the United Kingdom alone. The mute swan is one of 6 species of swan. Like most swans, it's predominantly white, but can be identified by the orange trim and distinctive large knob on its bill. It's not technically mute. A mute swan will hiss and grunt. But its trachea is a simple straight tube that goes directly into the lungs, instead of the coiled looping windpipe that produces the loud characteristic honk of these trumpeter swans. This makes it far less vocal than its closest relative. The image of this creature has left its impression throughout history. From cave drawings to Russian ballets, Arthurian legends to the ugly duckling, these elegant birds feature prominently in a variety of cultures. Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates all wrote that a swan singing peaks as death approaches, giving rise to the idea of the swan song, or the final performance. But being a status symbol comes with a downside. The mute swan is among the largest waterfowl on the planet. Its size and royal stature made it a popular main course for the banquet tables of medieval Europe. Beginning in the 13th century, mute swans were considered a valuable food source. For the next 600 years, landowners and noblemen captured and hunted them across the continent. By the end of the 19th century, the species was all but eradicated in the wild. The regal mute swan was on the verge of extinction. For this empire to avoid a final swan song of its own, it would take an alliance with none other than Her Majesty, the Queen of England. "7,000 kilometers west, across the Atlantic, Florida was once at the bottom of a shallow sea. Over hundreds of thousands of years, rivers transported sediment here from the eroding Appalachian Mountains. Eventually, water levels dropped and the ocean floor was exposed, leaving a thick layer of sand surrounding what is now Naples, Florida. It's this sand that makes a perfect home for one of nature's expert diggers, the gopher tortoise. Gopherus polyphemus is the only North American tortoise native to areas east of the Mississippi River. Its empire expands across the southeast United States. Here in Florida, they can be found in every county. Gopher tortoises inhabit uplands with deep, well-drained sandy soil and desert-like conditions. Several times a year, these expert diggers build burrows up to 12 meters long and 3 meters deep. The burrows are not only home to the tortoise, but also used by more than 350 other species. Snakes, frogs, owls, and crickets all lease burrow space for feeding, reproduction, and protection. Some live alongside the tortoises. Others occupy abandoned burrows. Both the gopher tortoise and its cohabitants depend on the burrows for survival. This makes the gopher tortoise a keystone species, a species critical to maintaining the structure of its ecosystem. But that ecosystem is under siege. 60 million years ago, 23 species of tortoise lived in North America. Then came European settlement. Loss of habitat began to take a toll on the tortoises. During the Depression, they were even hunted as food. In the years that followed, development in fast-growing South Florida turned tortoise territory into hotels and housing. Residents and tourists were attracted to the same sandy soil that gopher tortoises used to burrow. Between 1990 and 2000 alone, the human population in the southeast United States rose by 20%. By then, the gopher tortoise population had fallen to 20% of its historical high. In 2007, the state deemed the species threatened. This empire is in need of rebuilding. To reverse the decline, the gopher tortoise must find a way to defend its shrinking territory. For Louisiana's herd of Père David's deer, it was a long journey over many miles and many decades to their adopted home. By the early 1900s, the last of China's deer population had been killed, and not a single member of the species was left in the wild anywhere in the world. 8,000 kilometers away in England, the 11th Duke of Bedford received word of the animal's extinction in its native land. The Duke tracked down the few that remained in European zoos and brought them under his protection at his deer park at Woburn Abbey, just outside London. This became the only home of a breeding herd of David's deer in the world. Over the years, the deer reproduced, and the Woburn herd grew. And soon, there were enough David's deer to disperse them to other zoos and wildlife sanctuaries around the world, like the Global Wildlife Center, north of New Orleans, Louisiana. Rebuilding an empire starts with the right habitat. David's deer are social animals. They stay together in large herds and prefer low-lying grasslands and reed beds, like coastal marshes and floodplains. They spend hours a day cooling off in shallow water. And they have the mysterious habit of sticking their heads in the water and digging up the marsh muck, decorating their antlers. Scientists are baffled by this unusual behavior. But what is known is that these antlers play a key role during the mating ritual known as the rut. In June, about 2 months before the breeding season, males feed intensively to build up strength. They eat grass, reeds, and bushes found in and around the wetlands. At the same time, females break off from the larger herd and form small mating harems. At the start of the rut, a stag will rub his antlers on trees or shrubs. It was once believed this was to prep the antlers for fighting. But recent studies suggest it's to mark their territory. They rub their scent to demonstrate to other bucks and does that they are ready to mate. When a stag is ready, he approaches one of the groups of females. But he's not the only eligible bachelor. He must establish dominance by force. The stag uses his antlers to butt heads with his opponent. He'll also bite and even rise up on hind legs and box. When the fight is over, the winner claims the right to mate with a harem. To increase his odds of reproduction, he mounts as many of the does as possible. For about the next 2 months, the stag's focus is entirely on mating. He doesn't even eat and loses weight rapidly. But he's not done fighting. He must continue to defend his harem from other males. By November, the rut is complete. The stag leaves the harem, begins to feed again, and quickly regains his weight. He also sheds his summer antlers. Unlike most other deer, a second set sometimes grows in over the winter months and falls off a few weeks later. Scientists believe this second rack is only possible due to the amount of supplemental feeding the deer get in captivity. Meanwhile, the pregnant females return to grazing on the grasslands, feeding the unborn calves they now carry. Breeding within the confines of the park has its risks. A shallow genetic pool and the spread of disease can decimate a captive population. But David's deer have no choice. The survival of this species depends on a new generation born into captivity. Sometime in the 13th century, mute swans became so popular on the banquet table of British noblemen that the monarchy took special interest. Too many birds were disappearing from the wild. A royal decree was sent out. The owners of the swans were now duty-bound to mark their feathered property. Much like branding cattle, swan owners were required to mark their birds with signature nicks in their beaks. To conserve the population, any unmarked birds became property of the ruling monarch and could not be hunted or captured. Swans were given the title of royal bird. Many believe that if it weren't for this law, swans would now be extinct in Britain. 800 years later, the royal bird is thriving. Across the country, swans now flourish in their preferred habitats: ponds, estuaries, and streams. Even in urban areas, they thrive in the shallow lakes and slow-flowing rivers of parks and gardens. Most of Britain's mute swans stay in the same territory all year. In winter, they're joined by other migrating mute swans from further north who come looking for warmer waters. These calm bodies of water provide the mute swans with a venerable all-you-can-eat buffet. They use their long necks to dip under the surface and take mollusks that cling to vegetation. They also eat plants, insects and snails, small fish, frogs, and worms. And they'll also graze on grassy fields. They'll eat just about anything to survive. With an ample supply of food, the swans turn their attention to breeding. The male and female birds, known as the cob and pen, will attempt to mate for life. However, if one or the other dies, an adult bird will seek another mate. After mating, the pair works together to construct a nest. It's a huge mound of dried grasses and assorted plants and sticks. The male supplies the materials for the nest. The female builds it. In the wild, the pair builds near the water's edge. From late April to early May, she'll lay up to 7 eggs in a single clutch. Both parents will take part in incubating them. For the next month, they will watch over their unhatched brood with the hopes that they will survive long enough to help preserve the lineage in what is now a thriving empire. Finding enough suitable habitat is crucial for the survival of any species, especially those in need of rebuilding their population. The gopher tortoises of southwest Florida have a strong preference when it comes to choosing a home. The habitat must have sandy soil for digging, and it must also have plenty of food plants and open sunny areas for nesting and basking. Open canopy woods, like long-leaf pine forests, are ideal. But Florida has lost all but about 4% of its pine forests in the last quarter century to development. Simply put, the restoration of this keystone species requires a helping hand. In response, starting in the 1970s, conservationists began fighting to protect the gopher tortoise. State laws were introduced outlawing the harvest and disturbance of tortoises in the wild. and sanctuaries were built to provide safe havens. Here, at the Christopher Smith Preserve near Naples, 70 gopher tortoises make their home on 7 acres of scrubland. The Conservancy of Southwest Florida protects and maintains the habitat. Still, real estate is at a premium, and when space is limited, territorial battles are inevitable. These reptiles have a reputation for being slow-moving and docile. But when it comes to defending its home, a tortoise can be fierce. A test of strength and leverage ensues, with one turtle trying to flip the other over. If it succeeds, the loser gets a death sentence. A tortoise on its back is a dead tortoise. It has no way to right itself. Luckily, this conflict is settled without casualty. The loser retreats in search of another place to start a home. Once territory is established, gopher tortoises spend most of their time burrowing in the sand, sometimes digging several meters deep in a single day. They have shovel-like front legs that help them to dig, and their back legs are strong and sturdy. Each burrow has a single opening. They're easy to spot in the landscape because of the characteristic mound of loose sand at the entrance, known as an apron. The width of the burrow is approximately equal to the length of the tortoise. This way, the tortoise is able to turn around within the burrow. Consequently, you can pretty much tell the size and age of the tortoise based on the width of his burrow. The burrow is an ideal refuge, a place for its occupant to hide from predators. It also remains at a fairly constant temperature and humidity year-round, offering an escape from extreme temperatures, drought, and fire. There's another reason an open canopy forest is crucial to the gopher tortoise. It's an ideal spot for its preferred food. It feeds mainly on the leaves, stems, and flowers of slow-growing grasses, cactus, pawpaw, berries, and other fruits, all of which require abundant sunlight to grow. The tortoise doesn't have teeth, but uses its sharp beak to tear away foliage, then pulls the food into the mouth with its tongue. From these herbaceous plants, the tortoise gets the nutrients it needs for a busy day of burrowing. It also gets most of its water from this food. It rarely needs to find a drink. All that greenery is hard to digest, so it depends on worms and bacteria in the intestines to break down the plants. It helps spread the seeds of these plants with its droppings, acting as a kind of gardener that supports new growth throughout the habitat. This dietary process is another reason the gopher tortoise is such an important part of the ecosystem. Starting in the early spring, it's time to breed. During May and June, females lay one clutch of 3 to 15 eggs, either in a sandy mound in front of the burrow or in a sunny place nearby. The eggs need heat to incubate. But being out in the open poses a risk. Tortoise eggs are a favorite snack for raccoons, foxes, and snakes. Hatching a full nest is rare. With hungry predators lurking, an individual female tortoise will be lucky to produce a successful clutch once every 10 years. It's another challenge to the future of this species. For the next 3 months, the clutch will be especially vulnerable. And the next generation of tortoises must survive if this empire is to have a chance to continue rebuilding. Back in southern Louisiana, 9 months have passed at the Global Wildlife Center, and this female Père David's deer has given birth to a healthy female fawn. Now, the future of the empire is in the hands of the newborn. Several ants watch over the fawn, also known as a calf, in a group called a creche. Like most species of deer, the young doe can be identified by her spotted coat. Though little is known about the species' life in the wild, the spots are likely a throwback to their days in the marshes of China, serving as camouflage from predators like tigers. Here, while the herd lives amongst other animals in the Wildlife Center, it is safely protected from potential threats. The doe has a good chance of a long and healthy life. And at about 2 years of age, she will reach sexual maturity and be eligible to start a family of her own. Despite the genetic bottleneck of the captive herd, disorders caused by inbreeding have been rare. The world's David's deer population has grown. So finally, in 1986, it was decided to reintroduce the species to its native land. 22 deer were flown from Woburn Abbey in England to Beijing, China, where they were released into a wildlife sanctuary in the area of the old Imperial Park, the same place where they were discovered over 120 years before. The transition was successful, and the herd expanded. To cope with the newest inhabitants, additional reserves were set up in other neighboring parts of China. But there was one more step to the rebuilding of this empire: their return to the wild. In a fitting coincidence, a flood in 1998 allowed a handful of deer to escape from a reserve south of Beijing. They crossed the Yangtze River to settle in adjacent marshlands, where they remain in the wild today. Lack of genetic diversity still remains a long-term concern. Recently, 16 more deer were released to join those in the wild in Hubei, with the hope that the new additions will boost the population. There are now some 3,000 David's deer in China. While the wild herd is growing, most remain in protected sanctuaries. captivity has helped them bounce back from the brink of extinction. But it is up to these wild herds to prove this species can survive once again on its own. Back in the UK, it's been just over a month and the mute swan's eggs have hatched. Young swans, or cygnets, come in two colors, gray and white. The white are known as polished chicks. The gray, or royal chicks, eventually turn gray-brown and then a white. The young cygnets stay with their parents for 4 or 5 months, sometimes riding on their parents' backs across the calm water. These young chicks are especially vulnerable. They need help foraging for food and can't fly until they're 4 months old, which makes them particularly attractive to predators. So swan parents are very attentive. By autumn, the cygnet's plumage is predominantly white, and it's time for these young swans to fend for themselves. In about 2 years, these young birds will begin breeding. Today, mute swans are thriving. In fact, in North America, where they were introduced in the late 1800s, they are so numerous and potentially damaging to their adopted habitats that they're culled in some states. Here in Britain, even with their healthy numbers, they remain protected. But they're still illegally poached. And water pollution is an ongoing threat. For now, officials will continue to monitor Britain's mute swans to ensure that the demise of the royal bird is never repeated. While Britain's swan population has successfully bounced back and Père David's deer are on their way, Florida's gopher tortoises continue to struggle. The species' future lies in the hands of the few remaining mating pairs. For gopher tortoises, the waiting game for new hatchlings is much longer than it is for swans. Eggs that escape hungry predators hatch in about 90 days. Nearly 3 times as long as mute swan eggs. The sex of a hatchling depends on the temperature of the nest. The warmer the sand, the more chance the new tortoises will be female. Once hatched, young gopher tortoises may share an adult burrow or dig a small burrow of their own. It's crucial they get to burrowing as soon as possible. They're born with a soft shell and are vulnerable to predators like raccoons, snakes, black bears, and hawks until the shell hardens at about 6 to 7 years of age. Gopher tortoises have a relatively long life expectancy. They can live more than 60 years. They develop slowly. Female tortoises reach adulthood at 10 to 15 years of age. If a tortoise doesn't make it to breeding age, it won't have a chance to preserve its lineage and add to the population. Those that do survive must still find a home and a mate, and they don't have many options. In contrast to the mute swans and David's deer, the gopher tortoise population remains in decline. Development continues to put pressure on the tortoise habitat. On average, 1,000 new human residents move to Florida each week. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission requires developers to relocate tortoises. But relocation brings its own set of issues. Moving sick individuals to new colonies can unintentionally help spread disease. Attachment to their burrows also means that many try to find their way back home after being moved. Others search for a new habitat, often drawn to the open, grassy lanes next to busy roadways. As a result, roadkill is one of the major causes of death for Florida's tortoises. And so, the gopher tortoise population increasingly depends on sanctuaries like the Conservancy of Southwest Florida. Fences keep wandering tortoises from the busy roads nearby. Staff help rescue and care for those that may be sick or injured. And along with other conservation groups, they are doing their best to give these rare reptiles a chance to survive, working to put a stop to the decline of this animal empire. Few species have stared extinction in the face and lived to tell the tale. Père David's deer and mute swans can make that claim. They are the survivors of the wild kingdom. For the gopher tortoise of the southern United States, the struggle continues. Threats loom for all three species. The rebuilding process is ongoing. They must continue to fight for their very existence if there is to be a future for their animal empires.